This is Clay Rooks at City College, and I'd like to talk to you today about process analysis. Process analysis is when you arrange a set of steps or a series of events or functions in a chronological sequence and relate one to another toward an end or a result. There are two types of process. The first is usually called directional or instructional, and the second is called informational or sometimes process of discovery. Process answers the question, how? Let's take a look at these a little more closely. The first is directional or instructional process. This gives instructions on how to do something, leading to an expected result. When you see books on, how to plan your career, how to buy a car, these type of things, this is instructional process. Examples would be things like how to make an espresso, how to build a website, how to operate the cash register at work, maybe how to hit a curveball, how to program your cell phone, what's the fastest route home. You get the idea. They are sets of instructions, basically. Let's look at some samples. Here's one. Lather, rinse, repeat. This is about as simple as they get. This is a set of instructions that came off a shampoo bottle. They can be, of course, more complicated, but not so much. Grease the pan. Pour the mix into a large mixing bowl. Add 1 egg, and so on. These are obviously the instructions on how to bake a cake. They can get more complex than this. You can change the appearance of the buttons on your Blackboard class site by going to the control panel and selecting Course Design. Next, select Course Menu Design. At Course Menu Style, click Buttons, and so on. This little bit more complicated set of instructions comes from the Blackboard Course Design instruction, and instructions can get even more complicated, like how do you build a jet engine? Product instructions are something that we're used to seeing, and this is a good example. Notice that often that the instructions are numbered, they're put in sets or groups, and they have illustrations. It's good to have illustrations a lot of times when you are doing instruction sets. Also, directional instructions can include things as directions, like how do I get somewhere? These are often done with a map, as you can see here on Google. This is the way that they do it because this is the way it works the best. You have written instructions and you also have a map. This is a good way to do directional process. The other type is informational, or sometimes called the process of discovery. This explains how something happens, or how it works, or how something came about. Examples would be, how does a seed germinate and grow? Or, how does a caterpillar become a butterfly? Or perhaps, how does a car engine work? Now, instructions on how to drive would be instructional, but how does the engine in a car work? That would be informational. Other examples would be like, how does a bill become a law? How does the Electoral College work? How does a computer store information? Finding these things out would be informational process. As you can see, a lot of these things have to do with things that would be perhaps science or engineering. They would be professional type of questions that people would answer. Here's a sample of an informational type. All right. Butterflies and moths develop through the 4 stages of a complete metamorphosis. A small, tough-shelled egg are usually produced in large numbers and laid by the female in appropriate places, and so forth. This is an informational process from an encyclopedia. That type of information is considered informational processes. Encyclopedias and books of knowledge and that's the kind of information that you're receiving. Informational process. A lot of times they come with illustrations. Illustrations are great for doing process. Here's an illustration of those 4 stages of metamorphosis of the butterfly that they were talking about. And then they're listed here. Egg, caterpillar or larva, pupa, butterfly, adult. So when you write a process paper, what do you need to pay attention to? First of all, you must maintain strict chronological order in giving your instructions or in explaining the information. You need to start with what happens first and very carefully go step by step through the events or the process to make sure that they get to the right result at the end. Secondly, you need to consider who is your audience and use your language very precisely. Make sure that you only use language that your audience will understand. With process, you don't want the language to be too technical or to use terms that could be interpreted in different ways. You need to use your language very precisely so that there cannot be misunderstanding, because if there can be, they can end up with the wrong result. Third, make sure that the steps and the information are complete. If you're trying to follow a set of instructions and something is left out or something was unsaid, that can lead to a wrong result. And so you have to make sure that the information is always complete when you're doing process. Fourth, you need to check that all of the information is accurate. This is important if you want people to reach a right result from whatever it is they're being instructed to do. Fifth, it helps if you group your steps and information in stages. For example, recipes are something that are very common types of processes that we see all the time. But they're often grouped like this: gathering, mixing, baking, and serving, all different stages. Gathering ingredients and utensils, then the mixing instructions, then certain baking instructions, then serving instructions. If you put them in stages, it's easier for people to follow them than if there's just a huge list of steps. Likewise, the illustration we saw earlier on the product. It explained in 3 steps how to remove U-clips, how to replace U-clips, and how to hang the frames. When we were looking at the informational process of the butterfly, the stages were the stages of metamorphosis: the egg stage, the caterpillar stage, the pupa stage, and the adult stage. It helps your audience if you put things into groups, into stages. 6. Give instructions for any possible problems or dangers that might occur, and include warnings. If something could happen in the instructions that you're explaining, and something likely could go wrong, you need to put in there a warning that it could go wrong, and if it does, what are the steps that they do to fix whatever might go wrong. So what do I want you to learn from this lesson? Alright, remember, process analysis arranges a set of steps or a series of events or functions in a chronological sequence and relates one to another toward an end or a result that you expect them to reach. There are 2 types of process. The first one is called directional or sometimes instructional. That's self-explanatory. The second is called informational or process of discovery. Remember, process answers the question how. How to something, or how did something happen? How does it come about? How does it work? It answers the question, how? All right, that'll do it.